Hi everyone, this is Mary and welcome to Super STEAM at Home Senior Edition. Today we're going to do some Halloween science, learn a little bit about chemistry and how solutions are formed. We're going to do an experiment to determine which of three kinds of candy dissolves the best in water. And when we say the best, we might mean the quickest, we might mean the most completely. We're going to look at both those things. And first of all, let's make sure we understand what dissolves mean. When we put a solid into a liquid, it dissolves when it turns into a liquid itself, and that liquid becomes blended with the other liquid, and we can't really see that solid anymore. That's what it means when something dissolves. Okay? And our experiment is going to show us what that means. Now, in our kits, we got 3 plastic cups that we can see through, some different kinds of candy, gummy bears, some candy corn, and some lifesavers, and a data sheet where we can keep track of our prediction and our observations as we do our experiment. And we're going to have to add a few things from home. Paper towels are a good thing to have. We're going to need some kind of timer, either a kitchen timer or you can use a timer on a phone. It's good to have a spoon and a marker and maybe some paper, and then a measuring cup. Okay? And we'll have to supply the water from home too. So the first thing we're going to do is mark our cups so we can tell what's in what cup. So the first one I'm going to write down is, let me put gummy for our gummy bears. Okay. And the next one I'll put is lifesavers. And if you don't want to mark the cups, if you think you might use those for some other experiments, then you can just mark, and I'm going to mark the third one, which is going to be candy corn. I'm just going to put corn. If you don't want to mark the cups, you can mark some paper and just put gummy, lifesavers, and corn on little pieces of paper that you put in front of the cups. That works too. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is measure out. I've got a cup and a half in here. We're going to use a half cup of water for each of these things. So I'm going to try and pour out 4 ounces here into this first cup, and then 4 ounces into the second cup, and that's a little too full. Kind of even it up here. You want to have the same amount of water in each cup, because when we do an experiment, most parts of that experiment should be controlled, should be the same, okay? Because that allows us to measure what changes, because we know what things are staying the same. Those are called constants. So the liquid we're using is a constant, it's water, and the amount of liquid we're using is a constant, it's 4 ounces or half a cup. Now, the other thing that's constant is the temperature of the water. I'm using room temperature water. Okay? Now, so every experiment has a variable too. What is our variable? Our variable is the different types of candy we're using. Okay? So, once your water has settled down a little bit and isn't sloshing around at all, we can start to put our candy in it. Okay? So, I'm going to very gently drop a gummy bear into my first cup, a lifesaver into my second cup, and a candy corn into my third cup. Now, I have an extra of each of those, and I'm going to keep those out. Okay, I'm going to put my lifesaver in front of my lifesaver cup, put my gummy in front of my gummy cup, and put my candy corn in front of my candy corn cup. And even though these aren't exactly the same as the ones that went in, they might weigh a little different, look a little different, they're going to be what I compare my candy in the liquid to. So it's kind of what is called a control in an experiment. This is what these candies looked like originally before they went into the liquid. So if I want to see the changes that's happened in the liquid, I can compare it to the original one, to my control. Now your data sheet is going to help you keep track of this experiment. You're going to put down your prediction. Which type of candy do you think is going to dissolve the most and the best and the quickest? Okay? You can even put them in order, 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to set our timer for 15 minutes after we've put our candy in our liquid. And at the end of 15 minutes, we've got these little boxes to record how our candy looked. We can either write it down in a few words that describe it, or we can draw a picture of it. Or we could even use our phone and take a picture if we wanted to. So we've got a box for the candy corn after 15 minutes, a box for the Lifesaver after 15 minutes, and a box for the gummy bear after 15 minutes. Once we've recorded our observations, we're going to set our timer again, another 15 minutes, and see what they look like after a total of 30 minutes. Okay, so we're going to record our observation about the candy and how it's changed in that liquid after 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and 60 minutes. Okay? And then we'll see if our predictions came true or if we need to modify our hypothesis. So I'm not going to do this with you because that would be a very long video, and also because I want you to be paying attention to your experiment rather than watching mine on a video. But I am going to take a minute just to look a little more closely at what happens when sugar dissolves in water. Now, we know that all of these candies have a lot of sugar in them, okay? And if we had a microscope, we'd be able to see what was happening to the molecules of this sugar as it dissolved. The molecules being the tiny particles that everything is made of. And I've got a picture that will show us kind of what this would look like if we had a microscope. So let's do that now. Now, dissolving a solid in liquid means that the molecules of the solid, which are the tiny little particles that we can only see under a microscope, those molecules would no longer hold together and make a solid shape. They get spread out throughout the liquid. So here is, these are representations of all those little water molecules. And here's 2 sugar molecules, which is also called sucrose. Those are pretty big compared to the water molecules. And there's 2 of them stuck very tightly together because it's a solid, okay? Now, the water actually has kind of a magnetic force associated with part of the water molecule, and that magnetic force pulls on certain parts of the sucrose molecules. Okay? It has an attraction to them and pulls them towards it. Now we can see these 2 sugar molecules are kind of starting to move apart. These water molecules can even insert themselves between these 2 sugar molecules and kind of force them apart because they're making the sugar molecules attracted to the water instead of to each other. They break that bond that these 2 sugar molecules have to each other, and instead the sugar molecules are going with the water that they're attracted to. And eventually they move even farther apart. They're still sugar molecules. They're still sucrose. They haven't stopped being sugar, but they've stopped bonding together to each other to make a solid. Now they're drifting apart, and they're going to be in this water solution, and they're going to be liquid, just like the water is. Well, how did your experiment turn out? Did it turn out as you expected it to? Do you need to modify your hypothesis? I hope you had fun doing this, and I hope you learned something about why each of these substances dissolved or didn't dissolve in water. Pay attention to the questions at the end of your data sheet and at the bonus activities, because they'll give you some hints about why these particular candies acted like they did when we put them in water. Okay? There are also some variations you can do on this experiment. What if we use different temperatures of water? What if we used cold water, warm water from the tap? We don't need to heat it up. and room temperature water as the 3 temperatures we tried this at. That will have a very interesting effect, especially on your gummy bears. So that might be a fun one to try. Also, you can try using different liquids. What would happen if you use cooking oil? What would happen if you use vinegar, milk? There's lots of different liquids you can try too, and there may be some differences in the way these candies dissolve in those different liquids as well. So I hope you have fun with this and you can take it in some different directions. I enjoyed doing the experiment with you, and I will see you next time on Super Steam at Home for Seniors.